Basil, what an absolute joy of a plant. It is delicious, it flavors food. I don't know what I would do without Italian seasoning. I need that basil up in there. What I didn't know was how incredible basil can be when used medicinally. The chemical makeup of basil reacts with the human body to create benefits like reduction of headache. It helps with gouty joints. You can gargle it to help with bad breath. The juices obtained from the leaves allow for relief in the throat and with earaches and even ringworm. It is aromatic, so essential oils. It smells delightful. It's a diaphoretic, which makes you sweat. Sweating out toxins is always great. It's a stimulant, which raises the levels of physiological and nervous system activity. It's a carminative, it makes you toot, let's be honest. It's also an expectorant, so if you have mucus or you're coughing a lot, it helps clear mucus. It's an antiemetic, which reduces nausea and vomiting. It's an diuretic, which helps control the balance of fluids, like when you pee. And it's also an anthelmintic, which destroys parasitic worms. Now, that's just the start. The seeds are used internally to treat constipation, piles, which are rectum and anus swelling that can be very painful and causes bleeding and swelling. It's awful. And then also helps with stomach ulcers, and it helps with heavy periods. There are 5 types of basil: sweet basil, hoary basil, clove basil, camphor basil, sacred basil. And all basils are in the family Lamiaceae. Don't know if I butchered that or not, but I did my best. Here's a diagram of the basil plant. It obviously has the flower, the stem, the leaves. The leaves are always going to be growing opposite of each other. Then there's obviously the roots, and then the male part, which is the stamen. There's always going to be 4. Then there's the female organ, the ovary, which is biocular, which means it's 2-chambered, and the seed is going to be ovular and brown. So the origins of basil come primarily from both hemispheres, which is awesome, and they originate from tropical rainforests, Africa, South America, and Asia. The plant itself prefers more loamy soil and does not thrive well in really damp, moist, water-dense soil or clay. It needs good drainage to really thrive, and it really prefers warmer areas. Seeding basil is fairly easy. You can seed it indoors in April or around April, or May outdoors. The thing is, seeding directly into the ground really doesn't work out very well. So I usually seed into trays, and the germination takes about 10 days, and they are ready to go in the ground once the plant reaches 3.5 inches. After that, just water once a week and keep harvesting from it. I harvest from our basil plants 2 times a week just to make sure they don't go to flower, because once they go to flower, they're not going to produce any more nice bushy basil leaves. As you can see, this is what basil looks like when it's flowering versus when it's about to flower. When it comes to harvesting basil, you want to take off the top flower. It's like pruning. If you take off that top flower, you'll see that there's new growth that will be coming up, and that causes the plant to bush out. Preserving basil is pretty difficult because it's so sensitive. You want to harvest it early in the morning, and when you're drying it, you want to leave it out to sweat. Otherwise, it will turn black. Also, don't expose it to cold environments. As soon as you bring it out of the field, it will shock it. The best way to ingest it is obviously fresh. It's going to have the most nutrients, but dried basil, and then obviously pressed basil into oils is going to be wonderful for aromatherapy and for topical use. Overall, I really enjoy having basil in my garden. There's plenty of uses for it, especially when it comes to cooking. I love putting it in everything, and before I learned more about the medicinal aspects of it, I didn't know that it would work with bad breath. That is so cool. And also, a basil gargle sounds delightful. Like, what a way to start the morning, with the aroma of basil and a little gargle.